Welcome back, Heartbreaking Talks listeners. Today, we have some interesting stories with updates, just as you requested. And, of course, more stories about cheaters. So, cheers. First story. I am being pressured to give money to a child that's legally mine, and I don't want to. Small detail before I begin the story. I'm from Europe, and the system here is a bit different than in the US. I'm a 46-year-old male with 4 children. 3 are biologically mine, 1 is my wife's fair baby. The oldest one is Olivia, 26, the twins, males, are 22, and the youngest, Emma, is currently 17. I discovered that Emma wasn't mine about 2 to 3 months after the birth from the first time I've seen her. We didn't look anything alike, and I was quite suspicious, but I ignored it for the time being. I just didn't think that my ex would cheat on me, and I just hoped that I was imagining things. Then, after 2 months, I decided to do a paternity test, and just to be sure if our baby wasn't mixed up, I did one for my wife as well. The results arrived after a few weeks. It turned out surprisingly that the kid isn't mine, and there was no baby mix-up. I filed for divorce shortly after. The divorce was long, expensive, and ugly, but at the end, I got 50-50 custody for the twins and Olivia. As for the youngest, I had to pay child support. I tried to fight it with evidence that the kid wasn't mine, but the court verdict was that she was legally mine, so I had to pay it unless the father of the youngest would show up and take responsibility. My ex absolutely refused to tell anyone who the father was and claimed it was just a few one-night stands and she doesn't know who the guy is. As a result, I'm stuck paying child support for 18 years. I told my ex that without child support, she wouldn't receive anything else from me, that I won't be a father for Emma, and I don't want to see her. After the divorce was finalized, I moved to a different city. I just wanted a fresh start and it was difficult, but everything worked out except for dating. I tried learning to trust again, but it was extremely difficult and at the end, after many failed relationships, I ended up single. The main issue was I couldn't trust anyone except my kids and family, and that mainly destroyed every single relationship I had. I tried therapy, but that led basically nowhere. After a few years, when Olivia was 14, she got in a huge fight with my ex and decided to live with me. The fight with her mother happened because she wanted to take Olivia's money that she was saving. As a result, Olivia wanted to stay away from her mother and she decided to live with me until she was 20. Here is where the problem begins for my children. I was saving money and each got 65,000 euros after they finished school. I tried to teach them not to waste money and invest, but at the end, it was up to them. Fortunately, they invested the money smartly but are currently living independently. But the problem started when my ex started hinting about Emma, asking when she will receive money like her other siblings. At first, I thought she was joking and jokingly said when her real father shows up. She got extremely angry and started yelling about how bad a father I am and that the joke was inappropriate. I got angry myself and said that she should have thought about that before cheating and that I already paid for a child who wasn't mine for almost 18 years. At the end, I blocked her number and went about my day. That evening, Emma called me and asked why she won't receive anything. I politely said that she knows that she isn't my child. She got angry, saying that this wasn't fair, and hung up. My ex keeps calling with different numbers and keeps yelling what a bad person I am. I can afford it, obviously. It would leave a dent in my savings, but at the same time, I don't want to do it. Me and Emma never had a relationship. Maybe we would speak 2 or 3 times a year, but at the same time, I feel guilty for excluding and punishing her for what my ex did. Now for the top comments, if the kid is 17 already, wouldn't that mean only having 1 more year to pay support for Emma, or are you saying you need to pay child support for Emma until she's 35? The remaining time is less than a year. No, my ex just wants to get more money for me, and that's probably it. Even if the father appears now and admits everything, I wouldn't get any compensation for those years. It's best to just let go. What happened already happened. Next story. My wife has been cheating on me for a year. I plan to divorce her as soon as our child is in childcare. My wife and I have been married for 5 years and our child was born just over a year ago. I thought we were happy, but my wife became distant soon after. She stopped being interested in intimacy, stopped showing any affection towards me. She seemed to enjoy spending time with me less and less with each passing week and month. I have tried talking to her about it, but she has blocked any effort for me. I wasn't able to reach her then. About 3 months ago, I saw a notification on her phone. I wasn't snooping, I just wanted to pause the music she had played. But there it was. Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been hard all day. It was a text from her male best friend. My heart skipped a few beats. I started to look through her phone and found loads of texts going back months, nude pictures, dirty talk, everything. I wanted to throw up. Apparently, they started getting closer a few weeks after the child was born and started sleeping together around 3 months after the birth. On those nights she was out with her girlfriends, she actually spent at his house. I wanted to confront her, to leave her, and be done with her, but we have a child that needs us. I knew we couldn't take care of a child alone, at least not until he would go to kindergarten, and I knew she certainly could not take care of him alone. Besides, I couldn't ever stand being apart from my little boy. So I made a plan. I collected as much evidence as possible and kept my mouth shut. I stopped trying to get closer to her, kept my head down, and just took care of our child with all my heart. But at the moment he has settled in at kindergarten, when he is 2 years old, I'll divorce my wife and try to get custody of my boy. And that is my situation. I've got to endure a bit more than a year of this broken marriage, pretend that I don't know what she's doing, and keep things civil. There is no one in my life I can talk to about this. I cry myself to sleep when she is out with the girls, knowing what she's actually doing. I gotta stay strong for my boy. I love you, little one. Edit. Since everyone in the comments is telling me to get a paternity test, thank you for your advice. I already did. He is my child. Edit 2. To clarify a few things, as I already said yesterday, I had a paternity test done to make sure the kid is mine. He is, but it would not have changed anything for me anyway, at least not how I feel about him. I am talking to an attorney. I have been working with them for a while, gathering evidence and building a case. I am prepared in case my wife decides to act before I plan to do. Thirdly, sole custody is not my goal nor my preference. Optimally, I will go for some form of custody agreement with me being the primary caregiver. I don't want to take his mom from my little boy, but I am prepared for the worst. Many of you disagree with my opinion to keep my wife's infidelity quiet. Let me clarify. In any legal proceedings, I will not hesitate to use what evidence I have gathered, but I will not go around advertising my wife's actions to our friends and family or words to our boy. I will make damn sure his relationship with his mom stays as intended as possible. I'm aware that she might use some dirty tactics and may not be as respectful as I plan to be, which is why I am prepared for any eventuality with my lawyer. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Next story. I struggled to find the right person. My first girlfriend cheated on me with my cousin, and another girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend. I walked in on another girl cheating on me with her friend. Then I met my wife at the age of 26. She was much younger, which I thought was a good thing because the older girls my age were the leftovers that no one wanted. The good ones tend to get taken when they are young. When I met my wife, I was very taken aback. She was quite a bit taller than I am and lived in the ghetto. She had been a foster child and had been sexually abused. Contrary to my logical thoughts, I was drawn to her in a strong way. The more I tried to get away from her, the more I was drawn to her. I was very attracted to her. She was a quiet homebody, which is what I wanted. I married her a year and a half later, and we had 3 kids. I taught her to drive, or she probably never would have learned. I taught her to shop and take care of herself. I struggled to give my heart totally to her because I had been cheated on so many times. I struggled to trust people in general. I had plans to better myself in life, but my wife disagreed with every plan I ever had and fought me. She refused to cooperate and wanted to take charge of everything. She sabotaged everything I tried to do to better our lives. I started my own business, but she would complain that I wasn't working enough, even though I was making good money. She wanted me to go work for someone else and make half as much so that I could work 40 hours a week. This didn't make sense to me, and we fought about it continually. I gave her my heart and tried my best to be a good husband and make her happy. I told her she was beautiful all the time, spent a lot of time with her, and pleased her well in the bedroom. After we had been married for about 10 years, she began to say things that I thought I would never hear her say. I want a divorce. I am not happy. One day, I realized that I was going to lose her if something didn't change. I caved into her and began looking for a job to work for someone else. Every job I got was a disaster, and even the ones before I had met her were a disaster. Always a controversy, and always I was the center of it from the moment of being hired with no way to fix it. She got worse about the issue of me working for someone else. I knew I was in trouble and desperately looked for a job but couldn't find one. "You aren't trying hard enough," she would say, or she would say, "Don't worry about it," and I would think she meant, "Don't worry about it." Her mother died and she was heartbroken but wouldn't let me comfort her. 3 weeks later, I had a horrible reaction to an antibiotic that messed up my mind and body. I couldn't think, remember things, was confused, had insomnia, and had anxiety to the point of suicide. She met a man on that same day. He began sending her messages on Facebook and trying to get with her. One day, she went over to his house and he gave her a drink. He played the guitar and sang for her. Then as she was leaving, he kissed her and she got upset about it. Then she began seeing him and having sex with him as I was completely messed up. She slept with him for 6 months. She lied to me. She had a threesome with him, then on Sundays, she would go to church and teach Sunday school and pretend to be a good Christian. After her affair ended with him, she began looking for another affair. She went on Craigslist and found men and messed around with them. Made out with them, touched them. Went to a baseball game with a complete stranger. Then she found another man to have an affair with. She would meet him in the park and have sex with him and let him come inside her. He gave her herpes. She gave it to me. One day I was on the computer after she left her windows open and found the emails between her and many different men talking about sex, etc. When I confronted her, she tried to deny it, then admitted it. I was completely blindsided. I never expected this from her. She had been a really good mother and wife. We had a phenomenal sex life. She even punched me in the stomach a few times when I tried to stop her from leaving. She put me through hell and now wants me to love her the way I used to. I can't. I struggle to forgive her. I struggle to be happy anymore. All I think about is how she betrayed me and my love. I did finally give her my whole heart, only to find that she was shitting on mine. Everyone loves her and thinks she's this wonderful person. I used to too. Now I hate her. I have tried to keep this secret from everyone I know. I have only told those who are not close to us. I can never be the same. I feel like my hopes and dreams have been destroyed. We have 3 kids. To leave her is to lose them. They are my life. To leave her is to lose everything. I don't think I could survive if I left, and I am completely miserable being with her. She has changed so much since I caught her. She runs around now like a bat out of hell and won't ever relax from the moment we get up until about 9 or 10 at night. Then she is so crabby, she yells and pushes me away and is a miserable bitch all of the time. I can't believe she is the same person she was 4 years ago when all of this began. I told one of her lover's fiancés, now spouse, about it. She married the bastard anyway. My wife utterly refuses to tell me the name of the other guy. Sometimes I just wish she would have a heart attack and die for what she did to me and our family and because she is such a miserable bitch now. I feel like it can never be good again and like my life is ruined. I was so happy before, even with all of our problems. Now, I am completely miserable. Your support means the world to me. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and share this video with your friends. Next story. So it all started back in the summer of 2016. My wife had just started a new job, leaving the EMS field for an 8 to 5 job so she could be home with our 2 boys more. We met in 2008, got married in 2010, and had 2 bright and handsome boys. Not too long after she started her new job, about 5 months in, her job site lost a co-worker to a car accident. She took it hard because she had talked to the co-worker that morning right before the accident. She called me at work and told me. Just like any loving husband would do, I told her I would be heading to pick her up. But she just told me no, she was going to stay at work and come home. That night she did not come home until 12 a.m., which was out of the ordinary for her. I asked her why she was late coming home. She told me she and her other coworkers had to help cook for the person's family gathering. So a couple of days passed and the same routine continued, leaving early and coming back late. Every day I tried to ask if she was okay. I even told her I was there to comfort her and that she had someone there for her to cry on. But every day it was the same answer: she was okay. On the day of the funeral, she ran into one of her other coworkers and finally introduced me to him, saying that this was her chump. The guy was as old as us, and at first, he did not want to shake my hand or look me in the eyes. Then when she and he hugged, she started to cry on his shoulders. I found that very strange, and she never mentioned that she was going to all the gatherings with him until he had mentioned it when we first saw him and he finally shook my hand. Later that day, I asked her what her relationship was with the guy I just met. She said he was just a friend who took it hard and she needed to cheer him up along with her other coworkers. After that, I started noticing she was texting him and calling him more often at work and after work. She would say it was just work-related when I asked, and I kept on asking if there was something going on between them. Fast forward to Christmas of 2016, and I was told by my wife that she had to work late and that everyone had to work late too, so I didn't question it. She didn't get home until 3 a.m. that morning. She slept until 11 a.m. By then I was up, had breakfast cooked, and the boys were fed. She said it was very tough at work last night, they had to do a lot of catching up. Life went on until New Year's Eve. She said she had to work late again and that she would be home late too. As usual, I stayed home and watched the kids, watched TV and cartoons with them. The next day she was not home and she didn't get home until the afternoon. She said she had to take a shower because she felt dirty from all the sweating and that the AC had stopped working in their building. So as usual, I didn't say anything and let it be, but deep down, I knew she was with her male co-worker that I had only met once. After that, our sex life died out completely. She would say she was tired at night. She started wearing G-strings that I had never seen to work. And then at the end of January, she called one night saying she had to work late. The kids were at their grandparents' house, so curiosity got the best of me. I went to her work to see if she wanted some dinner. No one was there, all the doors were locked, and even her car was not there. I called her cell, and it just went to voicemail every time I called it. So I gave up and went home. Then one day, a couple of months later, a good friend of mine stopped by to see me and ask how I was doing. He told me he had heard my wife was sleeping with a co-worker from her job and that he needed to see if it was true. We talked for 2 hours. He left and I was trying to get access to my cell phone accounts, but the password was changed. I had to call to have it reset. After it was reset, I logged in and found out my wife was texting her co-worker every minute every day and it was sexual at times. It got to a point where she even asked if he would stop texting her because his wife was home. She even sent him nude pictures of herself. Now it was all adding up. Every time the company had dinner or cookouts, he would avoid me every chance he got and she would avoid looking at him or talking to him while I was there. So after 2 more days of playing like I didn't know what she was up to, I called her at work and told her I was in her neck of the woods and that if she would love to have lunch with me. She hesitated at first and said that she was supposed to go have lunch with her friend, but eventually said she would have lunch with me. At lunch, we talked about our work. Then I finally asked her about cheating with her man from work. She kept denying it until I told her I had seen everything she texted him. And that I was going to the head person to see what he thinks. She finally broke down and told me she was seeing him. That it started that night their co-worker died. And that it was just supposed to be a one-time thing, but it continued, and that her working late was just a cover for them because he was married too, and they were doing it every time they got. I was so disgusted by what I heard and was so mad and hated her so much that I left and went back home. She tried to call, but I never wanted her calls. I just texted her telling her to stay at her mom's house for the next couple of weeks. After 2.5 months, I finally decided that my kids came first and that they needed their mother back home. I called her and told her that she could come home, but under one condition, that she could not talk, see, text, or have any form of communication with her man from work. And she said she would keep her promise and could not have anything to do with him. So my question is, did I do the right thing, or should I have just kicked her out and never let her come back? Last story. Before we start, I appreciate your support. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. My girlfriend Liza and her male friend Jay grew up in the same neighborhood, just a few houses down from each other. They were best friends in elementary school and then drifted apart a bit in middle school. During high school, Jay's parents went through a really nasty divorce. I'm not really clear on all the details, but I know that Jay's dad moved out and Jay and his mom were really struggling financially. Liz's parents are about as kind, generous, and warm as people you'll ever meet, and they took care of Jay. He would often have dinner with them, do family stuff with them, and crash at Liz's place. Over this time, Liz and Jay became best friends again and stayed that way until college. Jay ended up getting a major scholarship to a really good school out west and left for school, while Liz stayed close to home. Over the years, they followed each other on social media, but had little other contact. I met Liz a little over 3 years ago as part of a social league for volleyball in our city. By luck of the draw, we were placed on the same team. We met each other at the welcome event and really hit it off. She is kind, gracious, smart, witty, beautiful, fun, and is just the right amount competitive. She's the kind of girl that guys meet and fall in love with, and I guess I'm one of those guys. But somehow, she also liked me. A year after meeting, we were moving in together and talking about the future. By no means is our relationship a fairy tale romance, but we have weathered our fair share of storms and have what I believe to be a healthy relationship with a good sex life, strong communication, and shared goals and values. We've talked marriage, kids, all of it. Here's where Jay comes back into the story. A few years back, Jay started a tech company with a friend. Their company grew rapidly and was bought out by a major player in the tech world. Jay moved back to our city this year. On Labor Day, we went to a party at a friend of Liz's from high school. Jay was also there. It was the first time that Liz had seen him in probably 4 or 5 years, so the two spent a lot of the party catching up. I'm not originally from the area, so many of Liz's friends have become my friends, so I was hanging out and let them catch up. On the way home from the party, Liz said that Jay had invited us over to his new house and that we needed to find a date. A few weeks later, we headed over to Jay's house. From the moment he opened the door to greet us, Jay was weird to me. I think he didn't realize that I was coming too, maybe that Liz was coming by herself. Almost the whole day, Jay spoke only to Liz. When Liz would try to include me in the conversation or talk about me, Jay seemed to change the subject to reminisce about old stories. It was very strange and was just kind of exhausting. Eventually, I went inside to the kitchen to get a drink and chatted with Jay's chef. He has a private chef to make his food. The chef was cool and confirmed that he had been told it was Jay plus one guest for dinner. Liza and I tried to chalk the whole day up to a misunderstanding, that maybe he just wanted to continue catching up, but there have been plenty of awkward things since then. For example, when at Jay's, Liz saw a crusade Dutch oven and said something about always wanting one, but not being able to justify the cost. Well, what shows up on our doorstep a few days later? The same exact Le Creuset. She one time mentioned that she really likes a very expensive classic lounge chair, but it's almost $4,000. It showed up at our place the next week. She said something the next day when we saw Jay, but he gave this weird smile and said multiple times that he didn't know what she was talking about. Jay is building a new company that creates tech for the hospitality industry. For this reason, he has connections with restaurants and breweries all over the city. In the fall, he invited Liz to a special dinner at a chef's table that is inside of the kitchen at one of the nicest restaurants in the city. Jay knows the chef, so they would get the royal treatment. When Liz asked if I could come as well, he told her that the table only seats 2. Liz and I talked it out for a while, and in the end, decided that she would go without me. She reported back that it felt like 2 friends having dinner together. I was talking about the whole thing with a coworker who told me she had also done the chef's table, and the table seats 4. At the beginning of December, Jay invited her to a special event at a local museum. One of the major museums in our city hosts a special Christmas party that you have to be invited to and is really exclusive. Think knockoff version of the Met Gala without the celebrities and holiday themed. Jay got 2 tickets and invited Liz. She's wanted to go for ages and never thought it was possible, so again, we talked it out and decided she would take him up on the offer. Again, she says he acted like a friend, but in hindsight, it feels weird that he keeps inviting her to stuff like this. As I'm writing this out, I already feel like people are getting ready to tell me that she's cheating on me or that I'm a pushover for letting Liz go to one-on-one things with Jay. But 1, we don't have the kind of relationship where I wouldn't let her do something she wanted, and 2, she is super honest with me. She's also a terrible liar. She has the easiest tells in the world. She's too moral and good-natured to keep a bad secret. That's why I believe her when she's assured me time and time again that Jay is very much in the friend zone. She is not interested. She believes that he is lonely and wants to return to being best friends. My worry is that Liz naturally sees the best in people. For example, if someone cuts her off in traffic, her natural response is that they must be in some kind of emergency situation. She genuinely trusts people, cares for people, and wants the best for them. I, on the other hand, am a natural skeptic. I tend to think that people are just out for themselves. I find her optimism really beautiful, but struggle to see the world in the same way. The long and short of it is that we both feel uncomfortable with the gifts and fancy dinners that he keeps getting her. But when she brought it up to him, he says he is paying her back for taking him in high school. He asked her to keep letting him do things for her because he feels like he needs to return the many favors her family did for him. Finally, this week, our friends got together for an annual Christmas party. It's been a tradition at that party to do a white elephant gift exchange. It's always weird stuff or funny items. Jay showed up with a second gift that he was cagey about all night. Someone thought it was part of the gift exchange, and he kind of freaked out a bit. Near the end of the night, he pulled Liz aside and gave her the second gift. Inside was a designer handbag and a super expensive pair of designer heels. She felt very uncomfortable accepting them and, in the awkwardness of the situation, just said thanks. Then we left soon after. Now, 2 days later, Liz has decided she wants to return the gifts to Jay and tell him they are too much. I think she said that they were almost $2,000 combined. I think we need to tell Jay to back off as well, but Liz is saying that I'm being overly harsh. What I'm asking is, am I being too harsh in telling a guy to back off who is trying to repay former kindness? If I'm not out of line telling him to back off, how can we ask him to stop with the gifts without destroying the friendship? TLDR. An old friend of my girlfriend's is back in town showering her with gifts to repay her former kindness. These gifts make us both uncomfortable. Do we end it? If so, how do we tell him to back off? Liz told me that she had decided to give back Jay's expensive Christmas gifts. She waited until he posted on Instagram about being out at an event at a local bar for a night, then drove over to his house with a friend, and they left the gifts by the front door with a note that said, paraphrased, "Jay, thank you so much for thinking of me this Christmas. While all the gifts you've been giving me are generous, I feel bad taking them. It was my parents who took you in back when we were in school. I was just excited to live with my friend. They are the ones who took care of you. If you feel the need to give back, my parents have always supported local charity. I'm sure they would be happy to know you gave the amount of these gifts in their honor." She hoped this would end things and he'd get the picture. I was doubtful. Around 2 a.m. that night, presumably when he got home and saw the returned gifts, he started bombarding her with text messages. They were all some combination of. He was such a good friend, and she was lucky to have him. He was going to give her the gifts back because it was false modesty that she was showing and not accepting them. She should always expect gifts from him, and he would always protect her and be her hero. It was really weird and creepy. We were already asleep when the messages came in so quickly and repeatedly that it woke us up. We agreed to try to go back to sleep and deal with it all in the morning. Luckily, we were leaving early the next morning to see my family for the holidays. On the way there, we worked together to craft a final message to Jay. Liz told him in the text that it seems like he wants a deeper relationship than she does, that she was happy in her relationship with me, and that she was blocking him to give him time to sort out his feelings for her. 30 minutes after that, we got a notification from our doorbell. I'll give you a guess who it was. He came back a few hours later to bring the gifts back, then came back again the next morning and then again that evening. Friends started saying that Jay had reached out to ask where Liz was, saying that he was afraid for her safety. Luckily, we didn't tell that many people about our trip, and those who knew also knew about Liz blocking Jay, and all stonewalled him. Still, saying it was a stressful situation is a major understatement. Honestly, the stress of it ruined our New Year's. While in my hometown, we visited my cousin whose husband is a lawyer. We asked about protective orders. He told us that, unfortunately, for our state, there have to be threats of harm or proof that he was stalking Liz. He told us that Jay's actions to that point were not extreme enough, but he encouraged us to save our video doorbell feed and to keep a record of every interaction in case things escalated. My parents let us stay in my hometown an extra few days before going home, but eventually, we had to head back for a work event that Liz had to go to. We were pretty nervous the first few days at home, and I installed 2 extra cameras outside our home with a wider view range than the doorbell could offer. Luckily, we didn't hear anything from Jay. After not hearing anything from her about him for about 2 weeks, we couldn't tell if we had gotten lucky or if something else was going on. While our closest friends knew what was going on and had all blocked Jay when Liz had, we had some friends of friends that Liz knew were still close to him. We had a close friend reach out to one of Jay's friends. This guy said that no one had heard or seen from Jay in about 3 weeks. He had missed 2 parties he said he would be at and hadn't posted on socials for a while. Jay was the kind of guy who would post on Insta 3 to 4 times a week. I should have left the whole thing alone, but my curiosity got the better of me. I reached out to a friend in the middle of February who works in the restaurant industry. I knew that they had been in conversations with Jay's new company about becoming a client. This friend told me that they hadn't heard from Jay in over a month, but that there was a rumor going around that Jay's business partner, and I guess the whole new business, was tied to some sketchy stuff, and a lot of the restaurants he knew of had gotten cold feet. No one had heard from Jay in a while, and this friend had not seen him at a recent industry event. This caused one of our friends and me to go into detective mode. Back when Jay had first moved back to the area, a bunch of us were invited over to a party at his house, which was a huge mansion in a super wealthy area. Liz and I were having a hard time remembering, but we feel like he was telling people he had just bought it. Last week, the friend who I've been doing detective stuff with found that house on a website full of luxury homes for long-term rental. We checked on Zillow, and the house was last sold almost a decade ago, so we don't think that he bought it and rented it out. We looked up a news report for when his company sold, and we don't see his name anywhere in the article. That being said, the only person it named was the CFO, so maybe he was an owner. We can't figure it out. So that's it. We don't have any answers for what happened to Jay. We can't figure out if he was just a sketchy guy whose new company had closed or if he was some kind of scam artist. Part of me thinks that he got a payday and is probably living in Costa Rica or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had been telling stories the entire time. Maybe he only owned a few shares in the company, so he had a bit of cash, but conflated his role in his bank account. I don't think we will ever have answers. On the plus side, it seems like he's out of our lives, and while we are continuing to keep an eye out, we are hoping we don't ever have to see him again. Oh, and two more story for you today. Really want to share these two with you. So, story from a woman. I met a man online. We were both in unhappy marriages. We clicked immediately. He confided in me that he was bipolar. I didn't know much about this illness but didn't care because I liked him. About 2 months into our relationship, his wife found out about us and he moved out. She filed for divorce. I supported him emotionally throughout his divorce. I was still married but extremely unhappy. I always worried that he would leave me eventually because he is single now, and I am still stuck in this unhappy, unfulfilling marriage. I wanted out but lost my job and couldn't support myself if I left. He always assured me he loved me and didn't care. I was torn. I love him so much, but I was married and he was single. It ate at me constantly. I wanted to be single and free. I was tired of lying and making excuses for where I was going or who I was with. He assured me things were good with us. We were together for almost a year. We had our ups and downs, which I would later find out through educating myself with the illness. A lot stemmed from his bipolar disorder and its symptoms. Despite minor arguments, we were attached at the hip. He called and texted me all day, every day when we weren't physically together. We were one and the same and enjoyed each other's company. We laughed hard and we loved hard. We were exclusive and we labeled ourselves boyfriend and girlfriend. I met some of his friends and his parents. We were deeply and intensely in love until one day, it all came crashing down. 6 weeks ago, he suddenly broke up with me. It came out of nowhere. The day before, he loved me and talked like normal. He was sweet and affectionate. The next morning, he broke it off. He said he couldn't deal with the guilt of how he acted within his marriage. That I was right because I am married, I am limited with my time. Which, honestly, wasn't true because I was spending almost all my free time with him. I never blew him off. If he wanted to see me, I was there. No matter what. I answered all his calls or immediately returned them if I couldn't answer at the time. He also said I could never meet his young son because he would know I was partly why his parents were divorced. That statement hurt me more than anything. It made me sound like a monster. I am not a bad person. I was and still am an unhappy woman in an unhappy marriage that made a choice to go outside that marriage and met someone who made me happy. He said he had to close this chapter of his life. So, that is what everything we experienced together talked about, explored intimately was a chapter in his life that he needed to close and move on from. He claimed he needed this separation to deal with this guilt. I will soon find out, though, that his way of dealing with this guilt of cheating on his wife would be immediately jumping into another relationship after me. In fact, less than a week after our breakup, he was posting on Facebook how happy he was, and one of his friends asked if it was because of a certain someone. That someone was not me. So, he was obviously pursuing this person while he was still with me and professing his love for me. I may be delusional, but wouldn't that mean he was cheating on me? The very thing he said he couldn't deal with doing during his marriage. Also, I know I was not the first woman he was with when he went looking outside his marriage. Why didn't he feel guilty then? Why did it take him 8 months to finally grow a conscience? If what he is telling me is true. Now, I don't know what to believe. The worst part about all of this is that immediately after he broke up with me, he blocked my number, so I couldn't even defend myself or discuss what happened. He made his decision with no regard for how I felt and then cut me out of his life as if I never existed. I have never had anyone treat me with such disdain in all my life. He went from a sweet, loving, affectionate man to cold and uncaring literally overnight. Was I finally feeling the wrath of his bipolar disorder, or am I truly just a piece of shit that can be loved 1 minute and thrown away the next like trash? Why didn't he tell me how he was feeling before he made this life-altering decision? If he loved me as much as he said he did, how could he give me up so easily? I told my husband everything. He doesn't want to divorce me, but I want out. I want to be on my own. I have this unrelenting urge to contact his ex-wife and apologize for my part in their divorce. I can't imagine the hurt she felt after being with this man for almost 10 years and having his child. She is a strong woman. I also would like to ask what it was like to be married to him. Did he have a pattern of doing this? I need to know for the sake of my sanity. I need to know the demise if our relationship was not all my doing. I need to know so I can forgive myself. I am in therapy now. The first few weeks were brutal. I completely shut down. For the first 2 weeks, I couldn't leave the house let alone my bed. I lost 10 pounds, I hated the sun for shining, the world turned into a dark cruel place I no longer wanted to be. You see, although I know now it was a fairy tale, he made me feel things I never thought possible. He made me feel young and carefree again. When I was with him, my problems dissolved and it was just us. The most mundane task seemed magical. He may have been using his gift for his own personal gain, but for the short time we were together, I experienced it too. He touched my heart in a way I fear no one will be able to do again. That is what I miss. The escape he gave me. It's not just the loss of the relationship I mourn, it is having to return to the life I was so desperately seeking to leave. I hate myself because I feel I caused all of this. I put my fears in his head and he took those fears, used them as an excuse to leave and ruin my life forever. He took the love he claimed he had for me and is now giving it to someone else. He changed his Facebook status to in a relationship. It said nothing when we were together. Did he change it now because he found his true soulmate and is finally happy, or did he do it because he knew it is what I desperately wanted for us and it was one last knife in my heart? I will never know. I am dead to him. My name is Carlos and I have been married to my wife Mealy for 6 years now. She's a good wife and a great mother to our 4-year-old, or at least that's what I thought. Our sex life has always been off and on. Sometimes we would have sex 3 to 4 times a week and sometimes 0 times a week. But then last month on a Sunday night, which is my only day off, I tried to have sex with her and she said she didn't want to because she was tired and sore from the gym. She kept denying me for the next 3 weeks and we had no sex at all in almost a month. I also noticed that she was always on her iPhone and was doing mandatory overtime every Wednesday and Thursday. So, 2 Wednesdays ago, I called her job, a pediatrician clinic, and was told she had left work almost 2 hours ago, 6 p.m. So, I texted her and asked her how work was, and she texted me back saying it's really busy, be home around 10 p.m. It killed me to know that she was lying, and God only knew where she really was. When she finally got home, she said she had gone to the gym and wanted to shower right away. I acted like everything was fine, but in reality, I wanted to ask her where the hell she went after work. So, I thought of a plan. I went to Metro PCS the next day and got a cheap phone with a $35 plan. My plan was to use the phone as a GPS to see where she was going after work. So, I downloaded Familinet on both phones, and now the cheap Metro PCS phone was a tracking device. Wednesday came again, and before my wife left for work, I ran into her car and located the phone under the baby's car seat. She then left for work, and about 20 minutes later, I checked my iPhone, and the tracker showed that she was at work. So far, everything was normal. It was now 6 p.m., and my heart was beating really hard to find out where she was going to go and to do what. So, at 6:20 p.m., I checked again, and she was somewhere in the back of our town's Walmart. So, I got in my car and headed to Walmart. When I got there, I went around the parking lot a few times to see if maybe she was doing some shopping, but didn't see her car. The GPS was still showing that she was behind Walmart, about half a mile into the woods. I drove to the back of Walmart and there were 2 ditch roads that led somewhere into the woods. So, I picked one of them and drove slowly for about less than a minute, then decided to park my car in the ditch and walk for about 5 minutes until I saw her red Honda parked behind 2 trees. I walked slowly and quietly, and as I got close to the car, I noticed a lot of movement. Then, I saw a man's butt through the back window of the car. As I got closer to the car, I could hear everything they were saying. I could hear her moaning, saying things like, "Yes, that feels so good, my ass is only yours, you can come inside my ass, baby, she never let me have anal sex." My stomach started to hurt and I couldn't believe what I was hearing or seeing. I closed my eyes and started to walk back to my car, but then I said to myself, no, this can't be happening, and went back to her car and started knocking on her side window. They both stopped and then she said, "Carlos, what the fuck? Why are you here? Oh my god, what the fuck?" She got in front of her car, looking for her keys, I guess, and the guy got out of the car and started to put his boxers back on. I noticed that he wasn't even using a condom and there was this horrible shit smell coming out of her car. The guy, a tall black Hispanic man, got in the passenger seat of her car, she turned her car on, and they left. I was just standing there for almost an hour, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then, I got a call from my mom asking me what time I was picking up Jason, our son. I ran to my car, and when I got to my mom's, I told her that I got in an argument with Mealy, my wife, and if I could spend the night at her house. Around 10 p.m., my wife texted me, asking how our son was doing, and that she was really sorry. She said that it was a mistake, that the guy doesn't mean anything to her, and that it was just sex. But I can't get the image of her or the words of the things she was saying when she was having sex out of my head. I have been staying at my mom's for 4 days now and have only seen her twice since I caught her having sex. She texts me all the time, saying she's really sorry, to forgive her, and that we should move away, and that everything will be different. I don't know what to do. I do miss her, but it's just hard to forget. This really sucks. If you've made it to the end, you're the person I'm trying to reach and read these stories for. Even though I trust people less after them. Click subscribe, like, and see you in the next video.